Okay, so we're going to start looking at module number 1. Now, we are going to be looking at Creo together. So wherever you're at, if you want to open up Creo at this time, I encourage you to do so. So I'm going to open up my Creo session here. And as we go in, it's going to probably be a little while. For some of you, it maybe has been a little while since you've worked on Creo. For others, maybe not as long. But notice that we're going into Creo 10. Okay, so if you have Creo 9 at home, Creo is not reverse compatible. So if you make something in Creo 9, you can pull it up in Creo 10. But as soon as you pull it up in Creo 10, it's now Creo 10 and you can't go backwards into Creo 9. All right. So it's important that if you are planning to work off campus, that you have the Creo 10 version available to you on a personal computer. Also, it's a good idea just to let you know here as well, to repeat this, is that Creo 11 is out and available for you to download. Do not download 11 because our computers here, especially if you're going to be working, are going to all be 10. If you accidentally do it, just know that whatever you work on 11, it's going to have to be at that version. Okay. And then lastly, as you're downloading and you're going on to getting your version, if you choose to do it, not a requirement, totally optional, because we have it here at school, make sure that you're using your WCTC email as your proof that you are a student. Okay. So, so just wanted to cover that. Now, as we go in here, we're just going to X out of these menus. So there's this first one that we're going to X out of and the second one, and then we're kind of like at our familiar place. Now, Creo is a little different, as we know. In Creo, we have to set up what we call a working directory before we even start creating any of our parts. So don't go in and start doing new and open until you set your working directory first. Okay. So we're going to go and we're going to select our working directory and we need to assign it right now. Now, if you're on campus, you can do it in a couple of different places. Know that you can't locally save this, for instance, to the desktop when you're here at WCTC, because it wipes them clean at the end of the day. And when you come back the next time, even if you log in as yourself, it's not going to be where you left it. You are going to have to do it one of two places if you're on campus, either on a flash drive or you need to put it on your OneDrive and you need to navigate to your OneDrive. So, I'm assuming, see, mine looks a little bit different than yours. I put mine in my documents, which is part of my OneDrive, WCTC. You may have a my documents. Again, on a student level, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same as mine. And I created a directory in here. I call it WCTC Creo. I'm going to continue working in the very same directory that I used for, I'm going to call it Creo 1 when I taught that last year. And that way, all of my files are in there. Okay. Now, once you create your working directory, and I'll give you a minute or two to do that, this is the only directory you're creating for Creo. You are not going to create any subdirectories in here that are going to organize it any further. We're basically just going to dump our files in there, including our borders when we get to be using those. Okay, so I just want you to know that one directory only. If you start subdividing them and trying to go between different directories, Creo can get a little goofy and lost. SolidWorks is much better at it. SolidWorks will allow you to do that fancy stuff. Okay, Creo just doesn't like it. All right, so it's best to kind of keep it simple. The other thing that Creo doesn't like, and I'm going to talk about this just briefly here, and we'll reiterate this when it comes up, is that file names cannot have spaces. Okay, so you have to make sure that you're abiding by their rules. So whenever I'm with Creo, I always put like underlines between things. So if I want it to be, for instance, like a I don't know, a spacer plate is a part that I'm going to be saving. I would have to do spacer underscore plate, okay, or do it all as one word, because Creo doesn't allow you to use spaces in their file name. So that's something to kind of remember back to when we were doing that. So once we have our working directory set, you just highlight it and you just click OK. And we have a working directory. Now this is where everything is going to get saved. Okay. We need to set that before we do anything else. Then the next thing we're going to do is, before we go into Creo, I want to do some configuration settings. In the past, we kind of used whatever the standards were or whatever the defaults were as we set up. But here in the first chapter in our textbook, now again, I'm not going to be cover to cover in this textbook. So number one, if you haven't purchased it yet, I wouldn't. But if you have purchased it, I will be dabbling in it here and there for some elements. But if you wanted to take it back, I think it's worth trying to get your money back if you can. But I am going to be following along at the first part of the first chapter. So we're going to go up and we're going to be configuring or customizing our configuration file. So if we click on the model display here, you are going to come up to a settings. And we're going to notice that this is where we can set a lot of the different elements for our environment when we open up Creo. Okay, so a couple things that we're going to do is on the model display here, what I want you to do is I want to make sure that your default model orientation is going to be an isometric. Okay, if it's not that, I think it might be trimetric is the default. So isometric is a good one. If it stays at trimetric, not a huge deal, but isometric is the preferred one. The other one that we want to do is set the shade quality to 6 unless it's something else. Okay. And then we're going to go down to our sketcher. So under core where it says sketcher here, I want you to change the number of decimal places to 3. Okay. This way, whenever we're in our sketcher, it's going to be 3 decimal places. It's also what our drawings are going to default to is 3 decimal places, whatever the configuration file is set to. One of the most popular, and we can always change it to 2 or 1 or whatever it might be, but 3 seems to be one that's really popular. So we're gonna set that to 3. And then we're gonna go down to the configuration editor. Okay, the configuration editor. Now, the configuration file is one that Creo is going to open when it starts up. And this is where, again, we can configure or customize some things so that they're going to be the way we want them to be. Now, if we look in our book, and I am in the text, oopsie, that undid, hold on. Let me get my camera up. So I am looking in our Creo textbook, and I am in the first chapter here. This is customizing multi-bodies. And we're on page 1-3, starting with the configuration file. And if we turn the page here, we are going to look at kind of all the things that we can configure here. Now, we're not going to get into a lot of them. We're going to do some key ones here, but it kind of gives you a feel for some of the things that you can change. So we are going to go to our configuration file. And the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to go down at the bottom here and we are going to add, okay, to our configuration file. And we're going to start typing in prompt _on_exit. Okay. And what this is going to do is it's going to ask us when we exit, do you want to save? Okay. Creo, if you right now, as the configuration file is set, you can hit the X up in the corner and it just goes away. Every other program, that's Windows related will always ask you, are you sure you want to exit? So this is a prompt to say, yes, indeed, I want to exit. So we want to change our optional value from 0 or from no to yes. We want to prompt on exit. Okay. So then we're going to hit OK. And you're going to notice that in there, you should have this change to yes. Okay. So prompt on exit and the value is going to be yes instead of no. Then what we're going to do, turning the page, the display for our models. So we want to go to add again, and we're going to type in on the option name display. Okay. And the default is just going to be shaded, but we want to arrow down and we want to change that to shade with edges. Okay, it just gives it a little bit more definition. And we're going to say, okay. And now your display should have shade with edges. All right. And then the last one that we're going to do an add. And we're going to do spin and _with _part entities. So spin _with _part entities, and it should populate. And we want to change that from no to yes, from no to yes, and then okay. All right, so these are ones that we're adding to the configuration file right now. Now, there are some that are in here that we want to change. So you'll notice that at the bottom here, next to add, there is also find, okay? So we're gonna go to the find option, and now we're gonna start with a keyword, and we're gonna put in trail, okay? And we're gonna hit find now. So trail and find now. Now, something that Creo does is in the startup menu, it'll save what they call a trail file. And that trail file is something that kind of sticks out there. So as you're in a session or as you're in a part, it records each and every like keystroke and every command that you did in that file. In the event that you get a crash and you want to try to retrieve that, you would have to go to that startup file. So what this is having us do is it's having us to create an actual place where we want to hold it. So we want to click on trail directory, dir, and this is going to instruct Creo to create a trail file in a specified directory, okay? So we are going to then set the value and we're going to browse. So I'm sorry. So right down here, the set value, mine is already changed, but you're going to browse, okay? Browse. And now what you're going to do is in your working directory, you may have to navigate to your working directory. Mine is in my documents and I have WCTC Creo. In that working directory, you're going to add a file or add a file. And I think you can do that by right-clicking and add new folder right here. So when you're in this directory, you can right-click, add a new folder, and then you can give it a name. And I called mine trail folder. That's all that I called it. Okay. And once that's there, you just want to click on it and you want to say, okay. And now it's going to give that path to that directory or to that folder in your directory. Okay, so make sure that that's there. And then you just want to hit add change and then close. Okay, so your trail directory now, trail directory, if you kind of hover over this, it should expand and it should be the, you know, the path to where you just specified. Okay. So that's the trail directory. Then up on the top of page 1.7, we are going to do the last ones here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the next ones. I'm going to focus in here. So in case you don't have this yet, we're going to do allow anatomic features. So if you're working with models that are older, we want to be able to work with those or allow those. And we're going to do yes. So I'm going to go back to Creo. I'm going to go to find and we're going to do allow underscore anatomic. And I'm going to say find now, and it should be the only one listed. Okay. And when that's highlighted, you want to go from no down at the set value to yes at the bottom here. Okay. And then add change. Okay. And then close and then find again. The next one we're going to do default underscore DES for decimal places. We can do a find now. And you want to make sure that that's set to 3. Okay. Again, that's kind of like the most popular one. You can always change that if you want to change it to 4 or 5, but 3 is a good place to start. So that's our add change. And then close and then find again. Our next one is going to be sketcher underscore starts underscore in underscore 2D. And we're going to do a find now. Sketcher underscore starts underscore in 2D. And this is where right now the set value is 0. This is where otherwise we would have to go normal to the sketch plane that we create, that we click on. We are going to change this to yes. so that now when we click on the sketch plane, it's automatically going to go perpendicular to that. We don't have to mess around. And it's going to be add and then close. The next one that we're going to do a find on is that we're going to do sketcher underscore lock underscore modified underscore dimensions, DIMS. Find now. And we want to set that to yes. So that if we change any dimension, those kind of lock in place and those are going to drive the design rather than not. We're going to say add, change, and then close. The next one, there's just two more. The next one is going to be dim dimension background underscore color. And then we're going to go find now. So it's this top one right here, but dim background underscore color. And this is setting the background color to contrast. And we want to go from contrast to manual so that we can change that if we want to. And then we're going to go find one more time, dim underscore background underscore color, and then underscore RGB. So the colors that we want to set it to, okay, dim background color RGB. We want those colors to be 250, 250, and 150, okay? 250 space 250 space 150. And then add change and then close. Okay. Yes.
Will we customize it to a different color?
You can, yeah, you can do whatever colors you want. So if you know what those color callouts are that you prefer, go ahead and you can play with that. Absolutely. And that's where and then this way it's set for your configuration file. You don't have to go back and do it manually each time that you go in. Okay. Yeah. Feel free to play around with that. Now, what we want to do is you're going to notice down at the bottom here. Now I know I'm going to scooch this up over here. Down at the bottom, it says options for import and export. I'm going to arrow down here and you're going to notice that you have the option to export per current filter. So everything that you set up right now is going to be for your current session only. If you don't save this, you would have to go back in the next time that you open up Creo and you would have to reset those. So what we want to do is we want to export these so that we can then pull them up when we want to. So we're going to export per the current filter. And now what you're going to do is if you are in the room at WCTC, you do not want to save in this spot. Okay. We are going to save in our, guess what? Working directory. Okay. So that we know where it's at. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click on your working directory that you have set up right now. And it's going to go to wherever you specified it, probably your OneDrive or a flash drive if you're here in the room. Okay. And all that you're going to do is you are going to then save this configuration file right here. You can leave it at config.pro, or if you want to give it a custom test, I'll one of mine test config.pro, but you want to save it here. So you can say, okay, and now it's going to save it there. So now we have it set for this session. If you want to pull up these settings, so you don't have to reset them, you're going to go into that model, and then you're going to go down to the configuration editor. You're not going to change anything. What you're going to do is you're going to go to import configuration file, not right now, but in the future. And you're going to navigate to where you just saved it to in your working directory. And now you can click on it and you can say open, and now it's going to pull all these in. Okay. If you are on a locally loaded version like I am, you could go ahead and not navigate, can save over that configuration file. And now each time you go in, it's going to read that new file for you. All right. But you can do that at home on a locally loaded version, but not here. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So you could save on a flash drive. We would need that with this computer.
Correct.
To upload the configuration.
Yes. And then let's say you go home and you have it on a flash drive and you pull it up the same way through the import on your locally loaded version. Then what you can do is you can export this to the configuration file that's locally loaded, and now you're done. Yeah. So just because of the rollback that WCTC does, it wouldn't be here the next time. Now, is it the worst thing in the world if it's not a big deal, but yet these are some settings that are going to make it just a little bit nicer, that we don't have to change. So now what we can do is we can hit OK, the green button at the bottom. And now we have everything set in the background and we're ready to get started. Okay. So again, we've set our working drawing. We selected our, working directory. And if you didn't, you created one. And then we also went through and we did our model display or our system configurations. And we just did that and we saved that configuration file in that working directory. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to Canvas for our module 1 practice problems. Okay. The module 1 practice problems is I want you to establish a working directory, which we just did. Okay. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a screenshot of that working directory with the borders, format, and template files present in there. Okay. So what that means is we're now going to go over to our modules and we're going to go into the Creo drawing borders. Okay. And what I want you to do now is you are going to download by hitting the arrows on each one of these files. So the format files we're going to download and they're going to go into your downloads folder. Okay. I'm just going to do one. Oh, I'll do them all. So you're going to download each one of these and these are going directly to your downloads folder. Okay. That one go. There it goes. There. And so you want to do each one of these because now what we have is we have the format files and the borders for an A and a B size English, an A size metric, and then we have a B size assembly. Okay. Those are in your downloads folder. So now what you want to do is you want to go to your file manager and you want to be able to have access to your working directory. So you want to navigate to where your working directory is. Mine is on it is in my documents on my OneDrive. And if I go like this, I'm going to find it. WCTC Creo. That's what I have mine called. You might have yours called somewhere else in a different spot. So have it so that you can get to it. Now what we're going to do is from our downloads file. Okay. So here's my downloads right here. I'm going to click on my downloads and the most recent files that I just downloaded are these right here. Okay. And I want to take and I want to select that chunk. So I'm going to hold my shift key. I'm going to select all of those. And I'm now going to drag those into my working directory, which is my WCTC Creo. All right, I'm not going to actually do it because mine are already there. And what I want you to do then is I want you to take a screenshot so that I can see that in your working directory. Now mine has all my stuff from I'm going to say Creo1, but I want to be able to see your templates and your format files for the borders in your working directory. So that means that I need to take a screenshot. And if you're on a PC, you can do the Windows Shift S. And I want to make sure that I can see the path as well as all of those Creo WCTC format files. Does that make sense to everybody? You're probably not going to have all the files I do in mine. I just kept mine all in the same directory unless you're using that same directory. But I want to be able to see that your template and your format files are in your working directory. Does that make sense? Lex.
You can also have them populate in Creo. Put down the working directory, they'll populate, those files will populate on your working directory.
Yeah. Oh, you mean at the top?
Like, want to take a screenshot of our, like the folder of Windows or the one in Creo?
I really don't, it doesn't matter to me, whichever. Just proof that if you want to do it in Creo, so what you're asking, Lex, is can I do the one in Creo where I can see it all? So if I go into Creo, that's actually a good point. It might be better there, whichever. You could either do it in Windows or you can do it here and you want to see all the files and then you'll be able to see the WCTC borders, right? Yeah, you can do it here. If you want to do it here, do the screenshot here. I do mine by doing Windows Shift S and then doing the window around it. And then you can upload that to the assignment as a JPEG, right? Okay. So then if we go back to Canvas and I go to Module 1, that's what I want you to do for your practice problems. It's proof that you created a working directory for me, that you have the borders downloaded properly with the formats and the templates all in that directory. Okay. And that's going to be your 10 points. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so that's your practice problems. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording here because that's that kind of first part of our lecture. And I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about our first project. Okay, so I'm going to do a stop recording.